absolutely the way to go. Thank you, and good having you, Ahmed. So on the other side, it's not the English House of Parliament, but the left side and the right side is just all together here in the beautiful city of Cascais. Vlad, please.
They're calling us conservatives and they are labor.
Well, they do the labor. We
We're the Green Party then. I'm Vladi Hora from Elalink. Elalink, we are the one wants to build, own, and operate currently the only system that connects Latin America to Europe via the South Atlantic. Obviously, we have a vested interest in this topic and any other things that have to do with crossing the Atlantic with subsea systems and enriching the ecosystems on both sides of the continents. And looking forward to understanding what we're going to talk about for the next 30 minutes.
We said 20 minutes because we have to go to
Make
the bar.
20, 21, and then we're done.
Okay, keep you to it. Thank you, Vlad. Good for him. Wilfried, please.
Yeah, hello. I'm with Digital Realty. I was almost saying reality. The reality is that I'm with Digital Realty. We're a data center company. We have 320 plus data centers, so I'm not going to name where they are. But I will mention that we just announced that we did an acquisition here in Lisbon. So we're also now a proud owner of a data center here in Lisbon. My responsibility is our subsea cable ecosystem. So we build cable landing stations or we host the termination equipment for subsea cables. And I do the coordination around the world.
320 and counting?
Plus, yeah, not exactly.
You lost counting, right?
320 plus.
It's unbelievable, right? Right? Anyway, let's go into this. So thank you, gentlemen. And now you know who's sitting here, right? So, Rui, if I may start with you, what are from your point of view, the current market trends and the challenges, and which strategic opportunities do we see in the regional subsea ecosystem market, connecting the terrestrial networks?
Who wrote that question?
And congratulations with the new logo, Ren Telecom. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Like I said, our main businesses is dark fiber and data centers. And I usually say that this is like a triad where you have to add submarine cables, of course, but it's a digital ecosystem. So we have it very clear. And the fact that we have terrestrial and data centers and we serve submarine cables, I think gives us a very good view on this. So I won't talk about submarine cables because I'm not the right person, although I have been working in telecoms for a few decades, like someone was saying just a while ago, and I did work for submarine cables in the past. But I would like to put some focus here on terrestrial networks, like you were saying. I think the opportunity we see, Portugal is a tier 2 market, okay? Cables are coming. We have already a few cables here, Elalink, one of them. Data centers are also exploding. We have just seen the Portuguese government publish a national data center plan. So things are very much aligning so that this ecosystem will explode, will go very well. And I think from what I see in other markets, like in the US, when demand moves from tier 1 markets to tier 2 markets, of course, you have to look after the landings of the cables, the data centers, connection to the grid, and we are also taking care of that in Portugal. There is also an ongoing process for that run by the government and by my mother company, REN, the electrical company. So when that happens, when loads move from tier 1 to tier 3, usually the connectivity bottlenecks come up. Okay, so I have to be very honest. I think maybe our networks are not that well prepared to cope with this. It's difficult to understand what is the demand, the exact demand that this will bring to the terrestrial networks. But terrestrial networks, like you were saying, you were having a bit of fun with that, but it's true. It's true that terrestrial networks is what unlocks the value of the ecosystem. It's what unlocks the value of submarine cables and data centers. So I think the opportunity here I see is to align the deployment of data center submarine cables and terrestrial networks. I think, like I said, Portugal is very well positioned in this point because we have all these things, and I can go into more detail if you want, in place. I think the geopolitical situation also favors Portugal and the Atlantic. So I think this is the big trend we see. I think this ecosystem will be requiring very low latency and very high resilience terrestrial networks. We already provide some of those connections to some data centers and submarine cables. So these are the trends and opportunities I see here. And
Okay.
I'm not talking about submarine cables even.
He loves his terrestrial networks. Anyway, Vlad, are you done with your texting? Yeah?
Yeah.
Dating app or what was it?
No, I'm happily married, but thank you for asking.
Ah, that's exactly why I was asking, you know. They all tell me I'm happily married.
Shall I sit somewhere else?
No. Anyway, you're talking to the chief divorce officer, huh? Here, huh? So that's why. Anyway, no. Your view on the trends and the strategic opportunities you see, especially in the subsea area.
Yeah, obviously on the subsea side, this year I would call it the year of change compared to 25. 25 was a bit slow, specifically on the South Atlantic pickup, and people were kind of extending their decision timelines. It was becoming a little bit of a question mark, also taking into consideration the upheaval in North America. This year, we can definitely see a significant positive change in terms of the type of businesses that we're closing and the type of capacity demands that we're seeing, which have been significantly increased. So it's a good time. Also coincides with the growth of CNES as a landing location for new systems. There have been quite a few announced, and I think more will follow over the next couple of months and in the coming year. So it's a great time to consider the implications of new cables coming into CNES from your perspective of terrestrial backhaul, the implications that come on to the deployment of new nodes and edge locations from a data center perspective, as well as how it bears on the load balancing of traffic in the Atlantic and how it's reflecting the actual path that goes sometimes from Asia all the way to South America and back, and the redundancies in between. So it's all interconnected, as we very well know. Sometimes it's been a bit off-balanced by pure North Atlantic focus. We see that coming a little bit more into the midway, obviously, with the other cables that go from the lower part of North America into Europe. And now also with the large developments that we're seeing, for example, in Fortaleza in Brazil, directly implying a growth on the traffic on our cable that then terminates into Europe and beyond. So 26 is a good year. That's what I would like to say. Don't quote me in 27. Probably it's going to be even better then. But as far as we're concerned, we can definitely see the upshoots, which are valid. It's not just the would like to have, is the real deal.
Okay, thank you. Artur, what's your take? What do you see?
Yeah, I cannot say like Rui that I'm not in the subsea space because I'm. No, interesting times because the people on the subsea are like the hidden guys for a long time, a long period of time. Nobody was able to speak about, because when we say I'm working on submarine cables, what? The internet doesn't
Are you in
go
the
via satellite or whatever. But these days, everyone is aware of the subsea cables, so they are becoming more and more relevant. And now with the conflicts and so on, we are also seeing that this geopolitical diversification is important, and they are critical assets that needs to be protected. So in that sense, it's becoming more and more interesting industry because of that. But I believe that we are also on a subsea market shifting moment, because we are seeing these days that we have the hyperscalers is a movement that starts a few years back, but we have now the AI infrastructure demands that is coming also there, and so they are becoming more and more relevant, and more and new systems are being implemented, because we really needs to drive that huge capacity that we expected from the AI development that is coming, and the needs of putting all of that traffic to the right places and developing that. So I believe that we are the enablers of all of this technology of clouds, AI, the hyperscalers content, and IoT, 5G, 6G, whatever it will come. So we'll become more and more maintaining as a relevant.
You sound like an ice parlor where you have all the tastes. You know, it's vanilla, banana, stracciatella.
We need to cover it all.
Good. Okay. On the data center side, what do you see? What do you hear from a demand point of view? Where you think the subsea guys should position themselves so that you, from a data center point of view, can answer, let's say, the critical questions actually, and the demand which is out there.
Yeah. So
5 questions.
5 questions in one. Let me give my perspective. So yes, the demand is growing rapidly. Not only AI. I mean, obviously we all talk about AI, but just the demand in general is increasing rapidly, which obviously for us makes sense to start expanding on existing locations. But what is more interesting is to see what the alternative locations are. And as Vlad mentioned, due to the political situation in the Middle East, and we've seen that with first of all with the Red Sea with Yemen, and now also the other famous tree that everyone can name, and most probably 2 months ago never knew where it was. You see that everyone's looking for alternative solutions. And what I think is interesting, what is happening is that we see more and more hybrid solutions coming up. So that's good news for Rui and also for Vlad, because you will see that, for instance, in the Middle East, I can already identify 5 terrestrial routes that are basically an expanding submarine cable to go through Saudi from the Indian Ocean towards the Med. And we also see the same here, for instance, with Lisbon. I mean, there will be a corridor between Lisbon and most probably Barcelona, or from Bilbao to Barcelona or to Madrid. And these will be hybrid solutions. And I guess Ella Link has proven that it's working, because you were one of the first ones to actually build a subsea cable as a terrestrial one. So that's something which is very interesting, and that also for us means that we want to talk to the subsea community and in early stage try to understand, okay, what are the alternative routes, what are the terrestrial routes that you're going to use, and where do we need to build? Are you going to build a connectivity hub close to a cable landing station, or is that cable landing station only being used to directly go into a hyperscale training site or whatever?
Okay. Now, Ahmed, I mean, you heard all the guys, right? From their different perspectives and whatever. So I think you and your company, you have studied a little bit, and
Absolutely.
I think something is coming out, right?
Yes, absolutely. So again, you have the 3 different pieces to the ecosystem puzzle. You have the terrestrial, the submarine, and the data centers. And each one of them is just as critical as the others, right? And just like everyone mentioned, the turmoil that's going on in the Middle East right now has shown how much needs to change, right? The terrestrial routes are now, it's no longer an optional thing. It's a necessity. Any new cable is looking at terrestrial redundant routes. Data centers are.
He's gonna buy you a beer, huh?
2. There we go. And then the data centers are now, in a lot of ways, replacing the submarine cable landing stations, right? But all of this is reactive, right? So we're reacting. We're a little bit behind. So one of the things that Axon has been doing for the past few months, and it will be published within the next few weeks, is we were looking at submarine damage, right, from a proactive regulatory and accountability perspective.
Say again.
So damage to submarine cables from a proactive regulatory and accountability standpoint.
Nadia, did you study that that already? Because I think legal has something to say here, but we'll get into that later.
We'll send it directly to you, Nadia. No need to waste your time. So again, we're looking at, if you look at the choke points, right? Bab el-Mandab with Yemen, Suez Canal, and now the Persian Gulf. So we're reacting now and trying to see, okay, well, if a cut happens, how do we address it quickly? And accountability is not even being talked about. It's just a matter of trying to address it. So again, what this paper does is it sheds some light on what needs to happen, proactive regulation and proactive laws to make sure that we're as efficient as possible. And looking at some of the green fields, like for example, the Caspian Sea, they're getting their first cable now, right? So proactively, let's put in the regulation now. Let's get you some standard operating procedures, some efficient ways to address anything that happens in the future.
Okay, that's interesting. So, okay, you said the word legal. Delving into a little bit of the legal opportunities and challenges actually associating with landing submarine cables in Portugal. The role of the regulator. Now, Manuel, are you still in the? Okay, so we can talk about the regulator, right? Openly, that's not a problem. No, but I mean, it's actually a good point, Ahmed, what you mentioned, because Sandra this morning in her opening speech actually mentioned indeed that proactiveness will be, let's say, on the top list in the agenda to make sure that we work on this one as well, that we have regulation for this one, that we have, that hopefully everything is as good as possible in place to be ready for the unknown, right? So I think the awareness is there. I think that I'm really looking forward to that report to read. So put me in CC when you send it to Nadia.
Done.
And really good to see. So yeah, guys, to talking a little bit about the legal stuff, because I think that rules are needed, and but we would like, of course, as operators, you all like to have a saying in the legal wording, of course, and to make it as juicy and funky as possible for you guys to, to roll out your networks, right? So, what challenges do we see there? Who wants to get there? Wilfried?
Yeah, sure. So obviously with subsea cables, if you start building a system, you have so many jurisdictions that you have to work with, and with all different regulatory regimes. And so what we usually see in the subsea world is that it all takes too long. It's all too slow. And actually sometimes you have to work with regulatory bodies in countries where you don't even land, but because you're passing a part of the sea, you still have to work with that regulatory body, and that makes it complicated. And even worse, what can happen is that let's say while you're in the whole planning, and you have shift status, and you're going to start building, and then because something is changing in a particular country, a new government, and suddenly you get new rules, so you have to you actually change midway, and that's also complicated. So yes, you're right. We all need rules and regulations. But I think what is more important is that we need to have steady rules and regulations that at least are the same for, let's say, the coming 5 or 10 years, rather than this changing environment.
So okay, so then now let's ask, let's get some legal advice here. It's for free, guys. So make notes, maybe. So you're saying we need the legal frameworks, right? And the steady ones.
Especially the steady ones.
So how do we achieve it, Nadia? Now let's make this interactive. Nadia, what is needed to have the legal frameworks, to have a stable environment for those guys to do whatever they need to do? What is possible? What can they do? Well, what do we need? Well, what do you think? Well, what is the best thing that you say? Well, you know what, guys, you should also think about this and think about that. I know you hate me now so much. But without this lady, gentlemen, You know, because these are aspects we need to understand as well. We can want whatever we want, you know, and do the work, whatever we want to do, but we need to educate not only the regulator, we need to educate ourselves as well. And sometimes that we need the people, the experts in this who can say, listen, I can help you with that. Over to you.
I know this is payback, Eric. But I will return the favor.
Thank you.
No, I think that we have to look at this from different perspectives. If you look at the European perspective, we have gone great lengths. So you have several BEREC documents on this, and I think that Europe has given great steps on this, and you have seen BEREC issuing guidelines and orientations on how to frame international connectivity that relies on submarine cables. And you have seen regulators, for example, like the Portuguese one, now addressing this. We have just recently seen an ANACOM decision on this that has determined that international connectivity operators providing international capacity are subject to the electronic communications legislation. And this then brings with it an accolade of regulatory obligations. And this is a movement that is going throughout Europe. So what I think it's the concern of Wilfred, of the fragmented framework in what concerns Europe is being mitigated, sort of saying. So, and I believe that with the Digital Networks Act that we will have in hopefully a short time, this will be something that will be completely aligned within the EU space. If you go into other regions, it's a problem. We know that, for example, Africa, which is now also becoming a strong connectivity hub because we are now looking into alternative routes because of the issues that we now have at the Northern Europe space because of all the Russian submarines and interceptions and espionage and so on and so forth. Africa is becoming quite interesting. And so it's becoming a continent where operators are looking into to establish alternative routes. Cape Verde is becoming an interesting hub. Angola is already a hub. You also have South Africa, Nigeria, and I could go on. And in Africa, we do have this fragmented framework, which is a real challenge because then you have several sub regional communities, you have different legal systems, and it's very complicated for governments to reach consensus on how to address, even within the continent, articulation. So when it comes to subsea connectivity, even more complicated. But I think that at some point, and there are some countries now importing best practices, and you have even some examples like the ITU group for international connectivity that also encompasses representatives from African countries that are trying to establish standards and best practices to address, for example, cable cuts and mitigation measures. And I think that if this isn't addressed at the regulatory level, at least it will be addressed from the commercial perspective and will definitely help to mitigate these challenges. If legal will not solve it, the commercial side will definitely try to address this.
Okay, thank you so much. Rue?
Just comment something.
Yes.
Thank you very much for the great overview. It's just like that. But I just want to comment that discussing the role of the regulator is a bit too late. What I mean is that she mentioned the Digital Networks Act.
Now be nice.
No.
You're a nice guy. I
I
know.
will be nice to everyone. Just watch. The Digital Networks Act, Nadia said that it's a proposal from the Commission, I think. So it's starting now, okay? And it will be ready in 2-3 years, maybe, something like that. But in the meantime, it's the time where we have to give our opinion. So that's why I say regulators will just enforce this in the future, okay? So yeah, we can discuss the role of the regulator, but I think Sandra Maximiano would say, well, I'm just enforcing what the governments and the politicals have decided. So I think what we have to do now, and taking the example of the Digital Networks Act, I ask, are your companies, have you read this? Do you know what we are talking about? Because this will be the playing field for all Europe in 3 years. Okay.
Okay.
That was nice.
And Nadia, thank you so much. You're still here today, tomorrow. So if people want any legal advice, they come to you. Thank you so much. No. Thank you, because it's normally she's on my panel, and she talks. And, I didn't want to say that out loud, but yeah, it's you. You didn't hear this, right? No. Anyway, guys, moving on. Maybe Vlad, you can share maybe with us how's the process, how the process goes actually within the infrastructure planning and its investments, and what are the latest infrastructure investments we've seen, or what we will see, and who are the players? What's out there?
That's a big question, but
4 questions.
no, well,
Handle that?
probably not. But anyway, the point is our system works in a different way. So obviously, we don't do speculative investments. We don't build in the hope that someone's going to come and buy it from us. Everything's been built on the basis of anchor customers who are accessing the required financing. So that's how the original system has been built, and each branching unit represents a fantastic anchor in itself, and obviously a constant revenue stream. But then, as we're now opening a new branching unit in French Guiana and one in Mauritania, again, this is based on the same system. Communities and local authorities are in need of communication capabilities and links with either Brazil in certain cases or with Europe. Then they find the funds and we build it for them, and then we operate it for them. So we run differently than others who are just getting a lot of funds from a certain private equity group or whatever, or pension fund, and they go out and they build stuff and then try to sell it, and they trash the capacity pricing. So if you are asking from the perspective of how financing is going, I would say the first option works better than the second, because you've seen a lot of subsea systems that crashed purely because they didn't really consider the revenue stream going forward, and they only looked from the perspective that it's going to be fine because people are going to need it. That's not always the case. So having a diversity in your financial model in terms of how you generate cash from the infrastructure long term, and also how you generate cash healthily from the exploitation of capacity, I think is the right approach. Other entrants to the systems these days, which are the hyperscalers, are going in with a completely different revenue approach. They don't particularly care about the capacities itself because it works for their own needs as an enabler of connectivity. It doesn't represent a pecuniary value in terms of 100 gig or 400 gigs or a tera of connectivity. They don't need to sell it. They can swap it between themselves, but it doesn't represent the same type of currency as for us carriers. So we're always in adaptation mode, and it's about finding the model that works for all the players and not just for some. That I think is the key here.
Okay. Artur?
Well, I would say that looking for the future, the traditional forecasting model is no longer enough, because we are seeing such changes with the AI workloads and the hyperscalers expansions that we need to think of something else. That's in one of the sides. The other side, thinking in terms of financial model, the problem is that the prices are going down at such speed that it's becoming more and more difficult for the infrastructure guys to develop traditional ones. So we are seeing the hyperscalers really been representing 80% already of the investments, because the normal carriers are not able to support that type of investments, because on the longer run, we are not sure if we'll be able to make it the break even of that investment. So it's a tough time so on that, because we know that the capacities itself are increasing, but the customers for itself, they are getting smaller and smaller, a small number of players on the market. And if you are with them, then we are okay. If not, then your life becomes pretty difficult. Yeah.
Right. Rui, while the business models are constantly being adjusted, and I mean, we just heard some examples here as well. Why are strategic partnerships so
Okay, how many questions? I
What's your
think
take on that?
I think we are not doing the right partnerships. I think we are doing it badly.
What's wrong? What's wrong?
I think we are all still hiding a little bit.
Are you hiding with your energy towards this guy?
No. Fully transparent
Okay.
on that one. We are
Is he?
fully regulated company. No worries about that. No, but I mean, when you have your business, you don't tend to share a lot. But I think that's the essence of business, is trust, is to be able to share what is relevant, what has value for you, and try to understand what has value for the other guy. But even so, it's a challenge, I think. So I would refer again. So how do you do it? I think governments may have a role here, or at least we should help them to have this role. I refer again the National Data Center Plan that was published this week, yesterday, by the Portuguese government. This provides basic guidelines on how things can develop and how to align investments. So that's one starting point. Is let's use those guidelines on regulation, energy and infrastructure, the local integrating with local communities, even public demand. It's there. Okay. So if there are clear guidelines there, and this needs to be further detailed, of course, it's a starting point for the alignment or partnerships, call it whatever you want, between the investments between data center, submarine cables, and of course, terrestrial networks. And I think the growth will be so big that we cannot afford not to be aligned, right? So we really have to be aligned. So far, we have managed to do it with not so much alignment, but now we need to put in place those partnerships. Organize ourselves like we did in Portugal for data centers. We have the Portugal Data Center Association, which is sponsoring this event. So I'm collaborating with my competitors in a way, right? And this is something we in wholesale can do quite well, because we buy and sell from our competitors, so we can do it.
You build together, you cry together, and you celebrate together.
No, it's true. I think we can do it, and I've done it a few times in my life, and it's important to find this balance of what is important to you, what's valuable to you.
Okay.
Okay.
Cool. Ahmed?
Thank you. So the collaboration, like you said, it's all about the collaboration, right? Even if sometimes we are competitors on certain things, and again, I do come from a carrier background, so I get it, but it's an entire ecosystem. And this is what Axon is helping some regulators understand better, especially in the Middle East, that we're not looking to shrink your revenues, right? If you open up and if you have open access data centers and submarine cables landing and carrier neutral data centers and open access CLSs, sorry, your ecosystem will grow, your demand will grow, and everyone is going to make more money. And these people that are currently, the incumbents that are trying to hide behind the cross-connect prices and that tremendous revenue they make.
But everybody has his own baby, and I have to protect this, and I need to, right?
Early monetization kills the ecosystem.
100%. And that is that is one of the things that if you look at all these countries, they claim they want to be a digital hub, right? How are you going to be a digital hub if you don't have a carrier neutral data center with seamless cross connects, right? How are you going to be a digital hub if the government is not clearly defining what they want to do? If today you want to build a terrestrial cable and a data center, right? Now, put aside the fact that you have the energy, but if you put all this money down and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we didn't plan for the energy needs, everything falls apart. So it's just having that conversation and commitment from all sides to be able to build something fruitful for the long term.
Okay. Talking about investments and for following what the gentleman just said, Wilfried, you mentioned in your intro that I mean you bought yourself into the region, right? Bought the new data center. So what were your thoughts for digital realty to come up with it? What were the, let's say, the main reasons? And in general, how do you, as you know, having 320 plus data centers around the world, how do you normally approach it?
Yeah, so we have what we call a market development approach for new markets, where I mean we look at something like 50 KPIs where we identify if it's what's the ease of doing business in a particular market, and can we establish a data center, and has it the potential to grow from let's say a simple transit location into a connectivity hub, into a cloud and content hub, into a enterprise location. So obviously, what we do is we do a lot of research in markets. We talk to customers, not only the hyperscalers, also the enterprise side of the business and the network service providers like CDNs or internet exchange. So we try to identify what that market looks like, and for us, it's always sort of making sure that we are able to establish ourselves and can build that ecosystem in our facility. So that starts with a subsea cable, and as everyone knows, that if that subsea cable terminates in your data center, it will stay there for 25 years. And so you have a steady customer for 25 years. Not only that, but it will automatically attract fiber providers. It will attract international carriers, ISPs, mobile operators, and then value-added service like a CDN or internet exchange. I mean, as an example, one of the first cables that we landed in Marseille, I'm not going to name which one it is, but we have around 580 cross connects to that single cable, with 57 network service providers connecting to that. And all these 57 network service providers all have a couple of racks or even more if it's a CDN or if it's a cloud company. So the pull-through revenue you will get from that is very interesting. So we always look at cross connects because that's an easy one to calculate, but it's the full pull-through revenue that you get. And so that's how we approach new markets. And that new market for Subsea should be it's either a new landing for a Subsea cable, it's a lower latency route, or it's a diverse route. These are the things that we concentrate on.
I hope as well that one of the KPIs was nice weather and good food here.
Of course. That was the key reason why we're here in Lisbon.
You see, you know, we're just human, you know, we're just human beings, and that's what we are. Um, we mentioned quickly security threats and especially as well the cybersecurity threats which are out there, but also and therefore the national security risks we have. And because by the end of the day, we need to improve the resilience of our networks, right? So Ahmed, just in a nutshell, what do we face in this region and how to move forward? What should we do?
That's a tough one. That's a really tough one because again, you have.
I ask you for the glass bowl, huh? You know, huh?
You usually do, yeah. But honestly, it's so dependent and codependent. Because if you look at the geopolitical tensions right now, even with the United States, right? So there is some talks of Europeans' data sovereignty, not just located geographically, but what kind of cloud are they using? What kind of equipment are they using, right? So you don't want to reinvent the wheel and start manufacturing your own cards and chipsets. And at the same time, you're not going to create a brand new cloud. So you're going to rely on either the American or the Chinese. But again, there's a pull away from that. So it's a really tough one. I don't have the answer to this one.
Mm-hmm. Anyone on the panel? What
Well,
do you do about it? How do you protect your customers?
So obviously we are a data center, and we are used to do everything in a very secure way.
You still looking under the cars with the mirrors and
In some locations we
you
do.
have to.
I mean, we have the famous 7 layers of security before you get to someone's server. The good thing is that even though we are an American company, we don't have a clue on what's happening on servers, and we can't even have access to these servers. So there's no way that we can provide data on what we have in our data centers. That's one. But I want to also do a bit of promotion. So Suboptic is having a number of work groups, and one of the new work groups is looking at the best practices for cable landing sites and for the security. So not only the CLS side, but also the front haul. And so if you're in the subsea industry and you're a member of Suboptic, there is this fantastic work group. So let me know and you can join, and we can all together set the best practices for security on cable landings.
Eric, no,
Yes, please, Arthur.
just that. So I was telling, everyone is now looking to the subsea. So it's a critical asset these days, and everyone understand that. And we need to protect and to have frameworks that helps that type of protection. My question is, because these systems are expanding globally, the number is increasing. I remember from times that we say that we have 300 or 400 subsea cables. These days we are telling that we have 600. The question is that the repair cheap vessels are still very limited. So when they fail, then we have a massive problems, and we need to address that as European community or as the countries or governments. Yeah.
Try to book a ship.
Yeah.
Try to book it.
No,
You're
even to lay a new
years.
cable. Yeah, even to lay a new cable. So you'll be in the queue waiting, I don't know how many months or years. So we really need to have that in attention. Otherwise, that could become the most critical security problems that we'll be facing cable in case of sabotage or threats or whatever. Yeah.
And it will happen. It's just a matter of time.
For sure.
So on land view, you're better equipped.
Yeah, I just maybe Nadia can add on that one, but I think that we have a framework nowadays in force, which is NIS2, which is quite important. It applies to all telecommunications, including submarine cables. And big news, it also applies to data centers. So we are already having this framework, and I think it's a good thing that we have common frameworks in Europe. And I think this one is really quite demanding, but it's really interesting, and it will help us to ensure that we have common security levels at this level.
Okay, cool. Guys, talking about enhancing the global connectivity, the strategic evolution of submarine cable infrastructure in the AI-driven era. AI, we talk about so many times, and if we already know and understand what AI means today and what it will mean in the future for us, but that's a complete different discussion. What I want to do is I want to give all my panelists a quick word as let's say a takeaway for you. And if I may start with you, Ahmed, just what should we look out for, and how do you see the future? Bright and shiny, of course.
Yeah, it is bright. It is bright. It's exciting. I think the future is very exciting. There's a lot changing, and not everyone likes the change, but at least it'll create the foundation we need to accelerate the alternative paths. the regulations, the accountability bits, all of it, and hopefully the collaboration.
Creativity. We need to be so creative.
Absolutely. And that only comes by sitting down and having these discussions, hearing the other perspectives and talking about it and disagreeing on certain things, but then coming together and saying, okay, at least the points that we agree on, let's move together on it. And again, what you guys are doing here, carrier community here and across the world, is amazing to enable these conversations. So thank you very much for that.
Oh, thank you for being here, and I hope next time you will sit here again. Not like Nadia, who does not want to sit here again anymore, with me. No, kidding. You know I love you. Rui?
Okay, so yeah, I think AI is really fundamentally changing things. I think we all know AI workloads are like 10 to 30 times higher in power density than regular normal workloads. So we don't talk about 10 kilowatt racks, we talk about almost 300, and there are talks about 1 megawatt. So this is a big stress on energy grids, on data centers, but also on the rest of the digital ecosystem that is submarine cables and terrestrial networks. I was just reading last week a McKinsey & Company report where they were forecasting, just to give you an idea what we are talking about. They say that the data center spending globally will reach 7 trillion by 2030. So how many trillions you can choose? It's huge, right? It's huge. So there is no way, and this is of course largely driven by AI, cloud, and data intensive applications. So I think, again, I would like to stress that it's in this scenario, whether it's 7 trillion or 2 trillion, whatever, we have to integrate, we have to align. It's impossible not to do this. Although, like Ahmed was saying, I'm optimistic. It's very exciting. I've been through quite a lot in my life, but this is really the big quantum leap I think that we are facing. But we have to do it together. Okay.
Arthur?
Well, I'm also positive and optimist, but the truth is that I'm still at the stage of trying to discover the real impact of AI on the subsea cables and from where to where, so that I could be in the right place to the right spot to be selling. So I'm still trying to discover, because I believe we are speaking a lot. What I know is that we cannot look to the historical growth path, the way we look to the IP transit grow these days, because multiplication is so big and numbers are so amazing that we need to be prepared for it and to be on the right spot.
Okay. Who of the two? Vlad?
Yeah, well, takeaways are funny because then they come and haunt you. But nevertheless, the proof is in the pudding. If you are able to correlate something that you're saying now down 6 months' time, next year, in terms of values, that's the most important element. To go to the point of AI, we haven't yet seen the impact on subsea cable systems at all. We're seeing it from the perspective, like in Sines, there's a massive AI hub being built, but they're not going to transport anything on the subsea. That using a lot of terrestrial, they're linking it with a different way of edge core elements that we haven't seen before. Even the AI guys don't know what that's going to look like. So as and when it hits subsea, then we'll feel it, and we'll feel it in terms of massive increase of capacity demand. So let's hope for the best, and let's see what happens next year, and when we get back together and look back at the figures.
Thank you, Vlad. Famous last words.
Famous last words. So one on AI, and then also an observation and a wish. So on AI, I totally agree. So there's a difference between what we see with AI training. So transporting large data sets to a training site, which just needs bandwidth, but it's not latency sensitive. And then we have the inference site, or the famous edge. I've been talking since 2017 about edge, and you can ask everyone, and everyone has a different definition on where the edge is. I'm still waiting for the killer application that needs sub 5 milliseconds, because I didn't see it yet. What I think is that we will have regional sites, you can call it an edge, and then we have the device, which is the true edge. What is interesting in the subsea part is the observation I see with where we used to have trying to get as much bandwidth per fiber pair. Now we try to increase the number of fiber pairs in a cable. And it's in a way that if you see, for instance, Meta at a certain trunk, they needed only 8 fiber pairs. But the thing is, they already went to the factory and only have 24 fiber pairs in cable. So they're building 24 fiber pairs, even they need only 8. So that's an interesting observation. The other one is what Google is doing in the Indian Ocean, but also in the Pacific, where they actually built this mesh, where they have a number of what they call connectivity hubs, either on different islands or on mainland, and then build a complete mesh of subsea cables. So that is very interesting how that pans out, and if they all need all that capacity themselves, or if they're going to sell that off. Usually they sell 25% of it. So that's interesting how that will change the routes of subsea cables. And then my wish, and that's the next step, and that's multi-core. I'm just waiting when multi-core becomes the standard in subsea cables. I know the factories are not there yet, but that will be the next step, I think.
Okay. And with those words, I would like to thank you, my panelists. So Arthur, Ahmed, Rui, as always, Wilfried and Vlad, thank you so much. I would like to thank you, audience, for sticking with us, and with a very special thank to Nadia. Thank you very much for your contribution. Fantastic as always.